Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Bot for short. I'm Edward Box, so going to review an album today. It's Metallica's new album, came out last Friday, 72 seasons. Apparently 72 seasons refers to the number of seasons you go through till you reach the age of 18. Seems quite interesting title, quite interesting artwork. There's been like cool sort of videos done for each track. Some are better than others. So let's go into it. I've got to be honest. I was kind of like, shall I review this album? Because I'm not. I've never been a big Metallica fan of the band. I've never really not got to grips with, but just kind of enjoyed the way other people do. But one thing's for sure, they are one of the most influential, if not the most influential metal band of all time. There's Priest, there's Sabbath, there's Maiden, there's Metallica. And you probably argue various things, associated with Ronnie James Dio as well. I think that's the core thing there, basically. Obviously, they are the original thrash band. I would argue their first album, Kill 'Em All, has quite a lot of New Wobham in it. So it's kind of heavier take on the New Wobham sound. The next album, Ride the Lightning, is where the more machine gun riffing, that chunky, heavily palm-muted riffing comes in a little more, and that continues to develop, obviously, with their seminal album, the breakthrough year of thrash, Master of Puppets, and then the Uncompromising and Justice for All. And those four albums are really what built their kingdom with the hardcore fan base. Then they did the Black Album, which brought them untold commercial success, but possibly alienated some of their core fan base. This continued with Load, Reload. And then since then, they've been sort of trying to kind of come to terms with what they used to be and what they are now, which is one of the biggest bands of all time in the sort of heavier end or hard rock end of our beloved genre. There's only AC/DC who are bigger, who have sold more records, I think. But these days, Metallica sell more when they put an album out. AC/DC's last album sold 1.4 million copies worldwide. I would suspect this, streaming aside and nicking stuff, this will sell more. Metallica's albums, even ones you wouldn't think have sold loads, like Ride the Lightning, sold like 7 million copies, I think, in America. Probably nearing 10 worldwide. That's, as much or more as Number of the Beast, for instance, worldwide. So it's even albums before the Black Album, they're just massive. 66 million album sales in the States alone, maybe more. And then there's the rest of the world putting well over 100 million. So that's sort of a little feedback on that. I suppose personally I kind of enjoyed the Black Album more at the time because it was kind of more melodic and had shorter songs. You get tired of hearing those songs, and there's some filler on the Black Album. But anyway, let's get into this. What I should say, it's 77 minutes long. So it's been hard for me to kind of give it lots of listens. I just don't have the time. If I had a physical copy of it in the car, maybe it would have been different. But I think it opens excellently with the title track. Check out the video for this. It's a really cool 2001 Interstellar style visuals. Excellent video. This is really good. I'm just referring to my notes. Like, it kind of starts with like a really cool bass, guitar, and then there's power chords over the top that actually kind of recall Solid Ball Rock by Saxon, which is a kind of Saxon track from 1990. Then it's kind of got sort of a blast beat, maybe not full intensity. Then it goes into a kind of halves the groove, and it's got your classic Metallica riffing, cool lyrics, good chorus. It's how long's this track? It's 7 minutes 39, I think. So it's not as long as some Metallica tracks can be, but it is that kind of quite a typical Metallica length. So a really strong opener. I would imagine if you're a Metallica fan and they put this album on with that anticipation, I think you'd be pretty fucking stoked with this. Next track, Shadows Follow, just seems a bit flat to me. It just kind of seems fairly standard. Whatever you want to make of that. But again, things pick up with Screaming Suicide. This has been like a kind of single video release. So this has kind of it's kind of going back to the Kill 'Em All sort of thing a little bit, where it's got like some chunky riffing, but it's got using shapes on the G and D string, sort of like Deep Purple, which is a big Lars Ulrich influence. So you can see the kind of DNA of this track And one thing I should say is, going back to Kill 'Em All, one of the reasons it's not kind of as heavy, they played quite a lot of riffs in the pitch of A, which is a very new wobbling thing. It's only when you get down to the E string, and later on when they're played in D standard or drop D, that you get that kind of heavier, chunky riffing. But there's some nice unison guitar lines on this, so I think this is a really good track. Quite a powerful lyric. Robert Trujillo gets a co-write on this. It's just on the album, yeah. Kirk Hammett gets 4 co-writes, Trujillo gets 3, the rest Hetfield, Ulrich. So this is 5 minutes 30, a little bit shorter. Sleep My Life Away is next. It's got a cool bass intro, this kind of Sandman style riff. Not great, but it's good. And then you got You Must Burn, 7 minutes 3. It's a bit ploddy, this kind of Don't Tread on Me-ish. I can't really get into the lyrics. And then your next track is Lux Eterna. So this was like the kind of maybe slightly misleading track that was released because it's only 3 minutes 26. It had a full-on sort of new Wobham style riff going right back to the Kill 'Em All. Not messing around. It's only 3 minutes 26. You know, really like this track. It is let down by a very poor Kirk Hammett solo. We'll come to Kirk in a bit. Then you've got Crown of Barbed Wire. Again, it's got a cool octave riff, so kind of riffing as well with the lower fifth in the chords. It's kind of heavy, but again, I'm not really sure of the chorus on this. It's kind of, the song's pretty heavy and chunky, but the chorus kind of feels maybe too melodic for it. I think that's one of the things with the album. Sometimes there's a kind of level of aggression with the vocals, but then the kind of chorus is more melodic. You know, I read a review somewhere that some reviewers felt like the music didn't interpret Hetfield's lyrics quite right, and there's not much kind of shade on this. It hasn't got a ballad, you know, it doesn't have many kind of clean but broken down sections. The last track does. I think, you know, Hetfield's kind of laying it on the line a bit of the lyrics as well. Obviously he's had some reappearance of his struggles recently. All these kind of things never go away, they have to be managed. I think he got really teary at one gig, which I was actually really moved by, you know, the idea that James Hetfield's worrying about struggling to keep his riffing up and deliver the best performance he can. You know, once you get older, it's harder to do that, and God knows what it's like if you're in Metallica. So then we got Chasing Light. There's a really cool high sort of vocal on the chorus on this. Hetfield really pushes, you know, he has got that ability to get up to that nearing the top C of the tenor range, but he's always kind of stayed probably a third or a fifth below that. One thing I should say, like one of my things with thrash back in the day is that it never had the kind of melodic vocals of traditional heavy metal like Iron Maiden, Priest, Dio, Sabbath, Scorpions, hard rock metal, and generally the vocal melodies only kind of used to move through about 5 notes and tend to be in a slightly lower register. So it's more about the aggression. So that was something that didn't appeal to me later on when you got kind of power metal and chunky riffing that took the percussive machine gun riffing of thrash, but you had the kind of Dio style vocals, and that's where that kind of appeal became more to me. But that's Metallica's influence. They influence everyone. You know, we've all kind of got something from this band. Then you got If Darkness Had a Son. This is really good. It's got a great riff, quite interesting. Sorry to get muddled up in the time, but it kind of reminds me of Wherever I May Roam a bit, with that kind of nice little single note, almost Phrygian line. Cool unison guitars on this. I like the lyric. I think the sort of balance of the music and the lyrics works really well on this. Then you've got Too Far Gone. This has got a catchy chorus, but it's maybe too happy and jolly. I suppose you'd be looking at a song like Escape for like a bit of lineage in the past. Riff's a bit samey. Then you got Room of Mirrors. It's kind of got a Stormbringer-ish intro a bit, with the kind of timing on the stabs and the riff. Again, that Deep Purple, Lars, big Deep Purple fan. It's a bit jolly, kind of not really cutting it for me. Then the last track, I thought I'd be like, oh Christ, it's 11 minutes long, but I actually really like it. It's In a Mortar. Really interesting riff. It's kind of 3 bars of 4. So instead of being 2 bars of 4 or 4 bars of 4, so it's got an interesting cycle on that. It's got a 70s vibe on this, and it kind of reminds me of middle period Aussie Sabbath Police, Sabotage, with some kind of extra layering to it. And this has got like a breakdown in the middle that goes quiet, and that's quite refreshing. The album kind of needs that. So overall, I think Hetfield's lyrics, there's some good lyrics here. I think Hetfield gives a good performance. I think sometimes it's difficult, you know, when he started out, he did, you know, that thing he does. Did that because that was his feeling, his emotion, his aggression. When he does it now, that he does that because that's what he's done, as it were. You know, it's hard for a band like this when you've been going that long. There's always that exact accusation, Metallica kind of have no hunger, which, you know, doing the length of sets they do and, you know, playing that high energy stuff, I wouldn't say they're lacking that. It's just they're massive, you know. They're no different from a band like AC/DC where they're only churning out an album every 7 years. You know, this album has taken 7 years. The one before that took 8 or 7.5, and then it, you know, I mean, it was 5 years between St Anger and Death Magnetic, or 5.5, and that was quite rapid. So I think one of the things is this album's too long, but Metallica have always done long songs. But what's interesting is I think their songs have got longer. Again, just referring to the notes here, but it's like, you know, the Kill 'Em All album had 5 tracks under 5 minutes. Now, sort of, when a track goes over 5 minutes, I class that as a long song. You've got to remember the standard sort of song structure when it's kind of arrived at. You know, there's Beatles songs and stuff like that are actually quite short when you go back to the 60s, but your classic kind of 70s, 80s structure is under 4 minutes. You get some over 4 minutes, but once you start getting over 5 minutes, you are going to longer territory. Ride the Lightning had 3 under 5 minutes, Master of Puppets and Justice for All had none, so really stretched out, but they've got less tracks on them, 8 tracks and 9 tracks. Black Album's got 5 tracks under 5 minutes and 2 of those are under 4. Load had 5 under 5, Reload had 3. St Anger had no songs under 5 minutes. This is where it gets interesting. Death Magnetic had none under 5 minutes, and Hardwired to Self-Destruct had 1. So it's like the songs have been getting longer again, but they've been putting more tracks on the album. So they're kind of doing songs that are average length of albums like Master of Puppets, Ride the Line, with those long, when the songs are longer, or Injustice for All. But they're putting more tracks on them. Last album's had 12 tracks. This album could certainly lose 2 tracks. You know, you could lose Too Far Gone, Room of Mirrors, or you could lose maybe You Must Burn, Sleep Not My Life, not Sleep Not My Life, Shadows Follow. You know, other people may like those tracks, I don't know. But you could lose 2 tracks. And again, with arrangements, you know, I mean, the 72 Seasons is a cool longer track, but, you know, you can always kind of trim a 30 seconds a minute. Sometimes Metallica like to kind of work a riff, and I know that's a trademark, but sometimes, you know, if you just had a cool intro riff, verse, if you've got a verse, bridge, chorus kind of thing, you got your free riffs for that. Just follow more that structure, which isn't a Metallica thing, I know that. But that would make it kind of snappier. It would be interesting to see Metallica do an album where they kind of do tracks that are under 4 minutes, over 4, and then maybe a bit over 5. And, you know, it's kind of like Iron Maiden have started doing very long tracks. So, yeah, that's just my take. So, what's the performances? James Hetfield, yeah, good vocals, top riffing. Obviously, we know generally that he tracks his rhythm. Robert Trujillo, nice bass sound on this. Kind of seems to be getting in there on this. Nice. Lars, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of his drumming, but, you know, if you like his drumming, it's present and correct. And he's maybe not doing those kind of interesting accents and sort of counter moves that he used to do. So Kirk Hammett gets ragged on a lot, so I just want to try and be objective. You know, the solos on this album, you know, bar some of them, but are perfectly serviceable. If you go back into the past of Kirk Hammett, he tended to use a lot more chops. His solos are more structured. I never was big on his playing because at that time there was simply other players around who were quite considerably better. Kirk Hammett's, like, at that time in the past, very solid lead player, playing for like a big band. You know, if you wanted to kind of high-end shred, you know, you could listen to Shrapnel albums, stuff like that. In the thrash metal movement, Alex Skolnick was, to me, the best soloist. He had more melodic solos. and so on. By the time Marty Freeman joined Megadeth, Megadeth were kind of moving out of that thrash era, really. And Megadeth, there's kind of thrash elements, technical elements on the Rust in Peace. But obviously Marty would be a choice. You get death metal like Chuck Schindler of Death. If you could say Chris Poland and Megadeth as well. So there was other players around, in and around the genre who were better. And obviously in other guitar genres. But there's no doubt that there is some, interesting soloing, some interesting ideas on this first 4 albums where there's more technique. On the Black album, he kind of slows down a bit and plays more melodic structured solos. But my thing with him, I've always felt he's not had a very strong vibrato. So typically a lot of metal guitarists usually have a wide, fast vibrato. His is a bit too narrow for me, and he tends to have this habit of overbending sometimes. But I think what's happened in recent times, people are criticising for generally using the wah too much, and it's like he's not caring as much. I think the solos on this sound better than the last album. I had to listen to the last album before reviewing this, and I do think this is better. There's some nice unison lines. The solos, most of them are just perfectly serviceable for this. It's just if you're expecting Kirk Hammett, 1984, 1986, that went a long time ago. That went sort of, after 1991 or before that even. I sometimes wonder what Metallica would have sounded like with better lead guitar. So what would it sound like if a Skolnick in? Or what would happen if Kirk Hammett, decide not to do it anymore, and you got someone like in the guys at Brandon Ellis from the Black Dahlia. Check him out. He does all the Marty Freeman stuff. He's got like the tight right hand. He could riff it up, but do some like crazy solos. But this is a Metallica sound, and Kirk Hammett's the lead guitarist. So that's my kind of take on it. It's like Mick Mars in the back in the day, or CC DeVille. The lead playing was perfectly serviceable for the hair metal they were doing. Now, but at the time there was better guitarists around, so they tended to get ragged on a bit. But it's that thing. It is what it is. It's like I say, the solos they're okay on this. They're just not great. So overall, I think I'd give this album, it's probably like a 6 out of 10 or something in my view. Some Metallica fans may be like really chuffed with it. They may think it's the best thing they've done in a while. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not a massive Metallica fan, but there's definitely some really good tracks on it. I think I like the production, I like the sound. And that's my take on it. I don't know when the next Metallica album will be. Like I say, I think they put albums out quicker if they shorten the songs. And then kept more riffs back, and you could probably do an album every 4 or 5 years. But no, Metallica, they've always done what they want to do. They've always been uncompromising, and they will continue to do that until they are no more. So yeah, that's my review. 72 Seasons. Check it out. Remember to share and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.